Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about episode 4 of Cowboy Bebop. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So in this episode, we finally get insight into Faye's story, and like I brought up last episode, Jet's storyline, Phase, I didn't remember anything about. Only one, like I said, the only one I knew about was Spike. So it is almost like pretty much learning this for the first time. So if this is something specific to the live action adaptation, then once again I wouldn't know. But it is kind of messed up learning that background. Even in circumstances we never found out like why she was cryogenically frozen. You know, I'm sure everyone has their respective reasons, but why her specifically? She doesn't even know who she is. Like Faye Valentine is just the name that was given to her when a lady that basically scammed her. I guess like the kit you have that when you wake up, they'll give you. It has like all your information about who you are and everything related to you. And this woman, Whitney, pretending to be her mom, scammed her of that. Because even the guy Mark will be like, "Wait, you didn't even get that?" Like, I guess because it's like, so like Faye has no like connection to her past. She has amnesia. But it's like, yeah, she's like, yeah, like you confused, like what's going on? Where am I? Who am I? And she's like, how can you even sleep at night? It's like, so I love that she's like, oh, you opera loving virgin. He's like, I'm not a, you know, so. Because at first she was going to be like, hey, I'm Laura and this and that, and it didn't work out. And then she was calling herself by like her cryogenic number, but it was like, no, I'm just Faye Valentine by the name you gave me. So you're going to help me. You're going to call Whitney and you're going to tell her you've got another person she can scam, and you're going to lead me to her, and I'm going to finally get all, you know, reclaim my past, reclaim my identity. But just when she's trying to get hers, I forgot what Maria called their crew. It was like the Callisto something, but basically they're eco-terrorists, and they basically want to make an example, and it's just like, cool, while Faye's trying to like basically do an operation of her own, she gets screwed over by them. And they're kind of a bumbling trio of siblings along with their mother. Granted, she's just kind of like being virtually called in, but yeah, basically the terraforming of Callisto is what they're kind of fighting against, and just like all the greenery being turned into something else. And so it's like, right, they wanted to make an example, show people what they could do, and they use a weapon that basically turns people into trees, but sadly they do it to the woman that they need, who's like the CEO of the business they're trying to get to shut down what they're doing, and they inadvertently end up killing her, and along with others, turning them into trees. I'm like, that is brutal. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if the anime of Bebop was super bloody. I know there were instances of blood, but I mean, it was on Adult Swim. It's not like it was on like Toonami or something. It was on Adult Swim, so it was. I do remember it getting bloody, but not too graphic. Like, I mean, granted, they shoot around it, but it's still like you hear the squishing of like the lady turning into a tree, and I'm like, the blood and everything. It's like, oh, it looks pretty brutal. So they end up leaving with Mark. So now Faye has to go after them. She gets shot. She has her ship stolen. And it's like, damn, this sucks. And then we have like, at the same time this all is happening, Spike and Jet are doing, you know, they're relaxing. It's been a couple weeks since last episode, for, you know, the events of last episode. So he's still like ruminating in his mind about like, he still has the bullet that he could have given to, Vicious, but he decided. So I'm wondering, is he still twiddling it around in his mind of like, maybe I should have taken that shot, maybe I'm going to regret not taking it. But maybe he's also looking at it as like, right, taking that shot would be kind of becoming the person I was before Fearless. I'm not that anymore. I'm Spike Spiegel. So maybe that's like twirling it around his fingers. It's just a reminder, and you know, just a reminder of so much, you know, an example of, like I said, him not being who he used to be anymore. Maybe not. There's a lot that could be symbolic for. But I love that Jet talks about like, oh, like getting a bidet and everything. He's like, oh, maybe even two, one for each foot. And it's like, wait, what are you talking about? Jet, you know a bidet is meant to like wash your asshole, right? And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I legitimately bust out laughing. I was like, holy, so you've been washing your feet in bidets this entire time? It's like, no, it's meant for your asshole, bro. What are you doing? But Faye shows up being like, yo, I got this thing. I'm going to get you ahead of like every cowboy out there is going to be coming after these people. They stole my ship and everything. And I'm going to give you, you know, we'll do a 60-40 split. And you're like, she's high. It's like, yeah, you see those like bags under her eyes? I was like, those circles under her. I was like, oh yeah, she's definitely high on something. Because it's like, yeah, you sound. She's like, I know I sound crazy because she's like, yeah, they have something to turn people into trees. And then the news lady was like, wait, that's real? Trees? Are you serious? Ah, shit bags. And it's like, all right. They're going to be working together in the situation, trying to track them down. But obviously Spike has his reservations on like not wanting to work with her, and I love that she sees a dog for the first time. Which they were like, how can you not see a dog? It's like, we have no idea how long Faye was in cryo. For her not like, not even just like, oh, you haven't seen a real dog. It's like the fact that she doesn't even know what a dog is. She doesn't immediately recognize it because she's like, oh, I see him in a zoo with like dragons and unicorns. So I guess she's heard of them but never seen them because they're like mythological animals to her in that regard. But she's like, oh, these things will sell for like 20 or 30 mil. It's like, we're not selling. It's not for sale. She's like, I heard they taste, they're tasty too. And it's just like, we're not eating it either. And she's just like, yeah, that's the thing about Faye. I definitely remember that about her personality. She's all about the money. She's kind of a money obsessed character. Like if I had another anime character I'd probably compare her to would be like Nami. Nami's like probably her and Nami would be up there for like the most money obsessed characters I can think of off the top of my head. But I also love that she's just like, oh, you're just like an ugly thing, aren't you? Which is like, don't talk all that shit to Ein. Ein's adorable. What are you talking about? But she comes to appreciate Ein later on, to my recollection. I could be wrong. But Spike doesn't want to work with her because it's like, right, you saw how the Asimov situation ended. Like, let's not work with her. We can't trust her. But, you know, Jet's still like, no, we have to. Just because it's like, we got 25 mil. And she takes off not only with Spike's ship, she also takes off with the dog too. And I love, because I forgot to bring it up last episode, but you know, Jet learned, and after working with Spike for 3 years, that Spike can read lips. And so Spike was like, I never came up. And I love it. She's like, fuck you fuckers. And it's like, oh, what did she say? Like, what did her lips say? And he was like, serves you right, essentially. Because it's like, yeah, it serves you. It's like, because getting his ship stolen. It's like, oh, that's on you, Spike. You're the one that tried to betray her by like trying to cut her out of the deal. But she screwed us over too. So tries to turn off the trackers, and she ends up, well, we find out about Harrison and her siblings. Like, she always gets the rough end of it. Like, from what we saw, it doesn't seem like her brothers ever got the, like, resentment that Harrison did. Because, like, if anything screwed up, it always fell on her. Maria kind of blamed her. It's like, right, I want you to be more like me and not be the disappointment. It's like, oh, taking a hostage. So she's like, no, that wasn't my idea. And she's like, if you want to know what to do, think, what would Mother do? So, by the time Faye shows up, Mark is already a tree, and it's like, you poor bastard. She does stick her hand in part of the tree. I'm like, it's, I can only think of potentially one thing that substance could be. I mean, I guess there's two things that substance could be when she stuck her hand in that part of the tree. I'm like, I don't, you know. But Spike and Jet found her, and just Spike's like, okay, let me kill her. And Jet's like, no. He's like, come on, just let me kill her just a tiny bit. Come on, let me do this. It's like, no, Spike. And for her, I love that she's like, what are you, some like twisted bastards? Like, what are you, bored, twisted bastards? He's like, well, you're part right. I have been bored lately. It's just like, because she is so distrustful of them. But considering her circumstances, it's understandable why she is the way she is. Like, she's very distrustful of a lot of people. It would, you know, when you kind of came up, you know, after waking up, being suddenly awoken from cryo, having no memory of who you are and everything, and having someone take advantage of you. When you came out of those circumstances, almost like a newborn being taken advantage of by the world. I think that's where Faye adopted a lot of that, like, right, screw someone over before they screw you over mentality that she has. But now it's like, yeah, I also love the inside bit between Jet and Spike, where they're constantly laughing about the fact is, it's like, oh, she reminds me of the cosmonaut. Oh yeah, the eyebrow. Yeah, it's the eyebrow. She's like, what's a cosmonaut? Like, tell me about that. It's like, we're working together. It's going to be a 60-40 split. The moment she keeps asking questions about the cosmonaut, he's like 70-30. And so they found out about Howard because it's like, oh, my children, like, oh, you got, like, oh, so-and-so's a Howard. No, you're a Howard. And it's like, yeah, because she was married to someone who's associated with the business that they're trying to stop from doing all that they're doing on Callisto. And by the time they get there, all the scientists are dead, including Howard, who actually got turned into a tree. Because I forgot, like, Maria was like, oh, we're going to go visit your father. So poor bastard got what he got. And it's like, cool. And I love Spike just being like, cool, wait, aren't we going after the bounty? It's like, no, we got to save people's lives, because if that thing goes down, there's like 6 million people. And Faye's like, yeah, you don't want to see the aftermath of that, trust me. So she gets to go after the bounty. And it's like, why does she get to go after the bounty? Why do we, I guess we have to do the right thing. It's like, I love that Spike's just not about it. I mean, to be fair, Jet's an ex-cop, so of course that's going to resonate a little bit more with him than Spike, considering, well, you know, whether that's tidbits of Spike's personality coming out from just his time with the Syndicate, or who knows what. But Faye ended up finally getting her device back from Harrison, who kicked her in her crotch. That's always so interesting. Like, you know, as a dude, you know what that feels like, how earth-shattering that is. But I'm like, I think from the stuff I've heard, it seems like for ladies it hurts just as much getting kicked there as well. But it took Faye down a bit, but it's like, right, Harrison and her mom are getting away, so I gotta chase after her. But, and I love her putting on that, like when Whitney calls, she puts on, oh, it's me, Mark. And she's like, oh, you sound like, she's like, oh, shh. I'm like, you're so terrible at this. But she ended up finding out exactly where Whitney was. So she was actually going to leave. I was like, wow, that's shitty. Especially because you're like talking about, oh, like the eco-terrorism level stuff they're going to do. Luckily, Spike and Jet were able to stop the Suns like from detonating their device. But she still has a giant missile. And Faye just being like, oh, I can't let all those people get hurt despite everything. Being a selfish bastard some of the time. She's not a terrible human being. So she goes back and sacrifices herself, bumps into the missile, even though it might mean death for her. And she's like, right, you know, for whatever horny bastard ends up finding my body, like, good on you. She's like, this is me. And she says her serial number, but she's like, no, I'm Faye Valentine. I guess it's like the whole thing of like, this is who I am. Like, I've kind of chosen who I'm going to be now, even though I might not have my past. At the very least, I'm not going to be just some number. This is who I am. I've taken the name that was given to me, and I've lived my own life and forged my own path. But luckily, she didn't die. Spike and Jet found her, and Spike was like, no, I was like sure that you were a goner, but Jet was the one that was like, oh, we got to come find you. And she's like, oh, you're trying to thank me? He's like, no, if I was going to thank you, you'll know when I'll say thank you. And I'm like, that line, to my recollection, it's super important because that's going to come back full circle. Not necessarily at the end of the season, but at the end of what is naturally nearing the end of the anime, if I remember correctly. Before like the final battle, that line comes back between Spike and Faye. So I think that is an important line to keep in mind. I believe. Once again, my memory is god awful, but I think that's what that might be. It's like, as significant the fact is to him being like, I'll say thank you when I mean thank you. But I did like what Spike said, that he said this line of like, you know what one life ending means? It basically means you get to kind of, basically you get to, I'm butchering the line, but it was basically like, one life ending means you get to start a new one. So you get to start fresh from here, and you decide where you go from here. And I'm like, you would have that perspective on things, wouldn't you, with your circumstances? Very similar thing. Different circumstances, but both of you've had to restart your lives to some extent for different circumstances. But and now Faye's part of the crew, and this duo has now officially become a trio, and you're like, yeah, allow the crazy shenanigans to ensue. Because someone had pointed out, like, yeah, because I was like, I didn't think they met Faye this early on, and I was listening to someone talk. They had only watched the first episode of this, but they were like, yeah, like, Faye, like, it's different circumstances under which they met her, plus they met her, like, in the first episode. I guess that's also why, like, she disappeared, like, why she didn't pop up in the next couple of, because I guess she wasn't usually this early in the story, so I feel like I don't think she sticks around with them until, like, much later, right? I think it's like when she's really, really on hard. Because I feel like the whole running into Faith thing stretched out a little bit longer in the anime, but that could just be me. Because I knew like she screwed them out of jobs sometimes. Like I feel like I remember like they get screwed over and she ended up walking away with the bounty a lot of times. And like she'd be like splurging it up and they'd kind of like, it'd just be this contentious relationship they'd have with her because sometimes she'd do what she does. She swoops in and kind of, but I think like they're putting them all together sooner than I think they would in the anime. I don't remember. Maybe it's, I don't remember. Like I say, I feel like more often than not, Faye was like operating on her own. She wasn't with Spike and Jet, but either way, the Harrison and Maria thing ended interestingly enough, and it's like, oh, somewhat sad endings, I guess. Like Harrison just like, right, I'm not going to spend like all that time locked up in a cell with you. It's like, right, I'm doing what you would want me to do. I'm making you proud, mother. And she at least it's a gas turning her and her mom into trees. So it's like, right, now you won't have to worry about being in jail. Because she talked about climbing the highest tree when she was younger, and now she's going to be spending the rest of her time in a 12-foot cell with her daughter. And it's like, yeah, I'm not about to have that. It's like, I've dealt with your abuse. I mean, we're not talking about the fact is that she was willing to kill your brothers either. You know, because they were upset. They're like, mommy, when she was leaving, no, ma and mommy, that she was just going to abandon them. And like, you're okay with that? You know, it's like, right, mom doesn't care about any of us, so who cares? So, also, it's just like, I always forget, like, I just love their choice in music sometimes too. I didn't talk about that earlier, but like, when the bomb, like the little device was flowing before it released the gas and turned that lady into a tree at the beginning of the episode, the music while it was floating through the air, I'm like, it's so interesting because you wouldn't, like, it doesn't, but I guess maybe that's the point. It's like a music that's good, but it just doesn't necessarily fit the scene. It's just almost like a wah wah, but it's like this nice, like, jazzy, like, flow. I don't know how to properly put it. Like, I didn't know, like, Bebop used its music like that. I mean, because once again, you also have to think about things, too, like how it flows live action and compared to, like, how it would flow in an anime. Because, like, there's stuff that fits the tone of an anime that wouldn't quite gel as a live action. So maybe it's one of those moments of like, it didn't bother me or anything, but it's one of those things where I'm like, maybe anime-wise, that would play out a little bit different. Like, I feel like I think in anime, they played out a little bit more serious than they did. Like, but I mean, you know, because when I think Cowboy Bebop, I do think about its more serious side. Like, I think a tiny bit about its jokey side, but I always take it more serious than anything, so. But other than all of this, we have Vicious and his plans to take over the syndicate. He plans on removing the elders and basically killing them. And it's like, that way you'll be safe, Julia. He's like, till then I'll get you off planet. But she's like, no, because she's like, if you do that and screw the pooch, like, there'll be no place safe. They'll come after us. So like, rather than going after them in a direct attack, why not go at them from the side? Get Eunuch and Mao, the other capos, on your side. And Eunuch won't work with you, but Mao. Hearing the name Mao, I was like, that name sounds familiar. The Eunuch, no, but Mao sounds so familiar. I feel like I'll probably have to wait to see it, but I'm like, that name definitely does ring a bell in this series. I don't remember much, but I think it's fascinating that Julia gave him that idea. But it's like, right, it's not because she really cares about Vicious. It is pure self-preservation. I guess that's more so why she stays with Vicious, because he kept her safe. And it's like, maybe it's like, right, since everything went down with Spike, well, you know, Fearless, that like she wanted to feel safe again. So she kind of, well, because it's also probably like Vicious made a move and it's kind of like, right, you don't want to get on his bad side. So she just kind of went along with it. And it's like, right, it's safer if he's in love with me than me like breaking his heart and him like breaking mine, literally. She even goes to Anna later on and it's like, right, can you set up a meeting between me, Vicious, and Mao? Which even Anna's like, wait, what? After what we just talked about last episode, you're going to be all about, it's like, yeah. Because she's like, yeah, I'm just trying to feel safe. But it's like, what are you getting? Like, you don't dig yourself deeper into this. But for Julia, she feels like, I'm making the best, you know, when you have lemons, you make lemonade. It's like, I'm making the best of the options I have. Because there's no just running away from the syndicate. But even Anna doesn't get involved in the syndicate stuff. She's like, you're right, I don't. ever. Like, what are you getting mixed up in? And she's like, it's better you don't know, because if Anna finds out, Anna's going to do everything possible to talk her out of doing something as crazy as she is. But for Julia, this might also be a gambit to put Vicious in a position that maybe she's hoping that if he does this and if things work wrong, that maybe he will end up dead and she will be able to okay. But to be fair, if he ends up dead, I'm sure she'll get screwed over too. But maybe the point is to put him in a position where you can betray him and you get your freedom from him, from the syndicate, from it all. But that's my current thought, but we'll have to wait and see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.